Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on where you're coming to us from across Canada. We're going to give everybody a few minutes to get on board here. Okay, seeing a lot of good mornings and good afternoons. That's great because that means we're coming from all different time zones, and we're very proud to be a national organization here with Brain Injury Canada, and we're very proud of the work that we've been doing here across Brain Injury Awareness Month. So I'm sure everyone here in attendance is aware of it, but June is Brain Injury Awareness Month, and this year Brain Injury Canada is running a campaign focused on recovery, reality, and recognition, talking about the differences that recovery looks like across brain injury for every different person that is living with brain injury, the reality of some of the symptoms and some of the life experiences that will come from living with a brain injury, and of course the recognition that we feel as an organization brain injury needs to have across the country, and the importance that it is to understand what it is that brain injury can living with brain injury can do to families and caregivers, and how we need to better support people living with the injury. So without further ado, we thank you for coming to our conversation today. We're very proud to be putting on this conversation where our entire speaking all of our speakers are people with lived experience. They're people who've been living with brain injuries, who have incredible stories, and we're very thrilled to give them a platform to share their experiences. And hopefully they can relate to many of you who are attending. First up, and our first speaker is Ty Hall. Ty here is a fantastic individual who is an Ottawa-based musician, writer, academic, and music instructor. And he really focused on his music and his creativity while recovering from brain injury. Ty holds a PhD in cultural mediations from Carleton University, where he's really focused on music and culture, and has spent many years performing, recording, and teaching music to students of many different ages and abilities. Brain Injury Canada is very proud to welcome Ty here. And Ty, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Gary. Thanks everyone for having me. Good afternoon. Let's share my screen. Okay. All right. Can we see my screen? Yeah. All right. So good afternoon. My name is Ty Hall. This presentation is titled, What Music Taught Me About Brain Injury. So when people ask me what I want them to know or understand about brain injury, I often bring the conversation to music. That may seem like a strange place to begin. Brain injury is usually explained through medical language, scans, symptoms, appointments, therapies, test results, and recovery plans. That language is necessary. I needed it, my family needed it, and clinicians need it. But medical language doesn't always capture what it feels like to live inside a changed brain. It doesn't explain why a person can seem fine in one moment and completely overwhelmed in the next. And it doesn't always describe the daily work of managing energy, attention, noise, emotion, and expectations. Music gave me another way to understand that experience. It taught me about rhythm, timing, repetition, listening, and expression. Over time, I realized that those weren't only musical ideas, they were also recovery ideas. My own brain injury happened in 2003 when I was 21 years old. I was hit by a car while crossing the street and sustained a TBI. I woke up hours later in the hospital, confused, disoriented, and unable to fully understand what had happened. Eventually, I returned home and continued recovering with the support of my family. In the beginning, the injury was visible. I had cuts, bruises, bandaging, and stitches. I had vertigo, double vision, balance problems, headaches, and exhaustion. I used a cane to get around, and I used an eye patch. At that point, no one had to wonder whether something serious had happened. But brain injury can become confusing when the visible signs start to fade. My speech became more fluid. I could walk better. I could laugh at a joke and I could hold a conversation. From the outside, it looked as though I was returning to my old self again. And in some ways, I was. There was real improvement. But inside, life still wasn't working the way it had before. Concentration took more effort. My memory was less dependable. My energy could drop suddenly, and my emotions were less stable. I could seem fine for a short time, but couldn't always sustain that version of myself. That gap between how someone appears and how they're actually functioning is one of the most important things I want people to understand. After brain injury, ability isn't always the full question. Capacity matters too. Someone may be able to do something once, but not repeatedly. They may be able to manage a conversation in a quiet room, but not in a noisy one. They may be able to attend an event, but may need a long recovery period afterward. They may be able to focus for 15 minutes, but not for 2 hours. And they may be capable, intelligent, and motivated, yet still have a much smaller margin than they had before. Music helped me understand this because in music, it isn't only about knowing the notes. This is demonstrated most clearly for anyone who's experienced the difference between practicing something by themselves at home and then performing it in front of a group of people or in a room with distractions. You can know the song and still lose your place if the tempo is too fast, if the room is too loud, or if there's too many things happening at once. You can have the skill, but not the conditions needed to use that skill reliably. Life after brain injury can be just like that. The person may have the abilities, but the conditions for using those abilities have changed. At the time of my accident, music wasn't yet the center of my life. It was something I loved, but it was still more of a hobby than a path. During recovery, that changed. Many things from my earlier life became difficult to sustain. Technical work on a computer screen quickly brought on symptoms. Martial arts, which had once given me discipline and confidence, became complicated by headaches, balance and timing issues, and fear of another injury. Social situations also became overwhelming, especially when there were multiple conversations or too much noise or stimulation. Music wasn't easy, but it was adaptable. I could sit with a guitar for 5 minutes and repeat one chord progression. I could sing quietly, stop when symptoms worsened, and return later without the activity feeling completely ruined. Music gave me manageable container for effort. That was important because after brain injury, effort itself can feel scattered. The brain is trying to handle attention, memory, movement, emotion, and sensory input all at once. Music gave some of that effort shape. A beat continues, a phrase repeats, a verse ends, and a chorus returns again. A song gives the mind and body something organized to work within. I want to be careful here. Music didn't cure my brain injury. It didn't erase the symptoms or make recovery easy in some inspirational or cinematic way. What it did was more practical. It gave me a way to practice attention, memory, movement, and emotion in a setting that I could adjust. I could make it shorter, slower, quieter, simpler, and I could participate without pretending I had more capacity than I really had. There are a number of things you get used to trying to avoid living with a TBI. Busy environments, bright lights, and the usual things that worsen symptoms. But recovery can't be only about avoidance, distraction, and passing the time waiting to get better. There's a difference between distraction and meaningful activity. Distraction can bring relief, and sometimes relief is needed. But meaningful activity does something deeper. It connects a person to identity, purpose, value, and a sense of still belonging to their own life. For me, that activity was music. For someone else, it might be walking, gardening, cooking, volunteering, drawing, or caring for animals. The activity itself will be different for each person. The point is that recovery needs more than symptom management. It also needs manageable ways back into meaning. At first, I thought recovery meant returning to the life I had before. I wanted to prove that the accident had interrupted me, but it hadn't derailed me. That desire made sense. After a major injury, it's natural to look backwards for proof you're still yourself. Over time, I learned that recovery wasn't going to be as simple as picking up the old plan where it left off. Some parts of my former life still mattered. Some values remained. discipline, focus, creativity, connection, and purposeful work were still important to me, but the old forms of those values didn't necessarily fit anymore. That realization brought grief. Brain injury doesn't only affect what a person can do, it can affect the future they thought they were moving toward. Some losses are obvious, others are more private. You can lose confidence in your stamina, you can lose trust in your judgment, and whether you like it or not, you learn to let go of the idea that life might unfold the way you'd expected. Music became one of the places I could carry grief and possibility at the same time. During my 20s, music gradually became more central. I recorded, performed, traveled, collaborated, and built more of my life around songs, rehearsals, shows, and creative projects. That wasn't a perfect solution. A musician's life is not exactly known for stability, but it did give me a path forward. It allowed me to contribute and not only recover. It gave me a way to participate in a life with seriousness and purpose. That matters because a person can't live only as a patient. Appointments, therapies, rest, caution, and strategies may all be necessary, but recovery has to make room for identity, pleasure, ambition, relationships, creativity, and contribution. Music helped me see that a changed life can still be a real life. It may need a different pace, it may require more negotiation, it may not follow the old map, but it can still contain beauty, work, humor, challenge, and connection. Later, through teaching at community music making, I began to think about music in another way. Not only as something I did for myself, but a way of understanding recovery and participation more broadly. I saw this clearly in music programs and care settings. In those spaces, the goal wasn't a polished performance. It was to create conditions where people could take part in whatever way was available to them. That changed how I listened in these settings. The volume, tempo, familiarity of the songs, the layout of the room, and the energy of the group all mattered. One early experience stayed with me. I arrived at the Royal Ottawa Long-Term Care Facility for one of my first engagements with a planned set of songs, thinking mostly like a performer. People listened politely, but the room stayed mostly quiet. Afterward, I worked with the recreational therapists at the Royal Ottawa Place and changed our approach. We chose songs that people were more likely to know. We made the space feel more open, and we treated the session less like a concert and more like a shared activity. The difference was immediate. Some people sang, some clapped, some moved and danced, some simply became more alert when a familiar melody appeared. Participation looked different from person to person, but it was real. And that lesson applies directly to brain injury. We often ask whether a person can or cannot do something. Can they work? Can they come to dinner? Can they return to school? Can they join the conversation? Those questions are understandable, but they're often too simple. A better question is, what would make participation possible? Maybe the visit needs to be shorter. Maybe the room needs to be quieter. Maybe the instructions need to be written down. Maybe there needs to be rest afterwards. Maybe the person needs permission to leave before overload builds. Sometimes the activity is still possible, but the conditions around it need to change. This isn't about lowering expectations in a careless way. It's about making expectations more accurate. When the environment is a better fit, people often have more capacity than they would otherwise. Pacing is a part of this. Before my injury, I associated discipline with pushing through things. Keep going, stay longer, finish the task, and prove that you can handle it. After my injury, that instinct often made things worse. In music, intensity has to be managed. A song can't stay full volume the whole time and still have shape. There has to be space, restraint, build, release, and return. Recovery often asks for a similar kind of listening. The question is not only can a person do something, it's can they do it in a way that leaves them feeling intact afterwards. That question can help protect people from unnecessary crashes, and it can also help protect relationships. A 40-minute visit that ends calmly is better than a 2-hour visit that leads to exhaustion, irritability, headaches, or emotional overload later. Families need support with this too. Brain injury happens to one person, but recovery affects the whole household. Family members often become drivers, schedulers, advocates, emotional supports, and witnesses to symptoms that other people never see. They may carry hope, fear, frustration, guilt, exhaustion, and love all at the same time. They also need language. Without language, fatigue can look like laziness, irritability can look like attitude, withdrawal can look like indifference, and inconsistency can look like lack of effort. With better understanding, the question can shift from why are they like this to what's the load on their system right now. That shift can change everything. So what do I want people to know about brain injury? I want people to know that looking better is not always the same as feeling better. I want people to know that capacity matters. I want people to know it's not whether someone can do something, but for how long they can sustain it, under what conditions, and at what cost. I want people to know that meaningful activity matters. Recovery isn't only about avoiding symptoms, it's also about finding ways to reconnect with purpose, identity, contribution, and joy. And I want people to know that quieter forms of progress still count. Stopping before overload counts. Asking for help counts. Returning to a meaningful activity for 5 minutes counts. Leaving before things fall apart counts. And tapping along to a performance at the back of the room counts. Brain injury can change the rhythm of life. It can change the tempo, the arrangement, and the kinds of support required. But with awareness, understanding, patience, and better conditions for participation, a new rhythm can gradually become possible. It may not be the same song that was playing before, but it can still be musical. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ty. We greatly appreciate that. It's amazing. Amazing to hear your story and amazing to hear the important role that music played in your entire life.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
So up next, we have another amazing speaker. Kerilee Sheppard is a consultant, an entrepreneur, and an advocate from Newfoundland and Labrador, where she lives with her family and her 2 daughters. Having lived in St. John's, Montreal, and Vancouver, she brings a perspective shaped by diverse life experiences and nearly 2 decades of living with brain injury and neurological illness. She's gained a deep appreciation of the importance of raising awareness and understanding and education. Kerilee hopes to help others better understand the realities of living with a brain injury and foster meaningful connections while reminding individuals and families that they are not alone in this journey. So please, everybody, help me in welcoming Kerilee Sheppard.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to have everyone here listening, and what a day to talk about brain injury. I just love it. I'm here in St. John's, Newfoundland, and we actually have good weather today, which is a rare thing, so that's another positive. Um, Again, what's really important for me about brain injury is that it changes who you are, but you still are the person that you began with. It's not just one thing, really. It's everything involved with the development of the new person that you become. There's a lot of different issues that people believe that brain injury comes from. Oh, if you have a fall, if you have an injury, if there's a major stroke. But whether it's traumatic injury or non-traumatic injury, brain injury is injury, and we have to kind of move on from there. Um, it's very different for many people, and the difference is in how we all deal with it. But the thing that's the same are the challenges. People struggle with fatigue, with memory issues, with concentration, depression, balance, vision, sensory overload, as was mentioned, movement. It all encompasses under brain injury, and the community is there. Our stories are different, but all the experiences, they tend to overlap. It doesn't really discriminate. Brain injury is something that it doesn't matter who you are or what you do. Children, parents, professionals, students, athletes, retirees, caregivers, anybody can have a brain injury, and you don't think it's ever going to be you, but it is. And my story actually starts in 2007. I was moving from Montreal to Vancouver, and busy mom, moving around, and business, and 60-hour, 80-hour work weeks as you go. And then ended up in hospital with what was diagnosed with labyrinthitis. But when my brain kept bleeding, it was found out that it was a hemorrhagic stroke, and I did need emergent brain surgery. So Dr. Redikoff, Gary Redikoff, was my surgeon, and he is fantastic with vascular surgery and brain surgery in general. And everything changed. Everything changed. It was a neurological condition that caused a brain injury from a bleed, basically. I have cerebral cavernous malformation, so it's like little small raspberries or blackberries of brain vessels being formed in your brain. And there was the recovery afterwards was very interesting. You kind of think, okay, after your surgery, you might come out on the other side and have no issues. And that is definitely a 100% fact for some people. It was not for me. I had to learn to walk, talk, eat, all of the above after my surgery. And this is something that doesn't disappear. It's an ongoing thing. It's something that you live with throughout your life. Progress, sometimes it felt slow, it felt stalled. Um, there were lots of questions, and sometimes you didn't have the answers to those questions, and nobody really could have the answers for you. I bled over the years through different things, and then in the last couple of years, there was a few major bleeds, and finally was decided that I needed surgery again. So just had another craniotomy in September of 2025, and now rehab is happening from that. But again, you keep going. You keep doing what you can do. You are the new person, the new you, as they say. And that's a really important thing to remember, is that you can't stop being yourself. You have to continue to be yourself on a different level. And the experience does change you and change the people around you forever, but you're still here and you're still important. The energy that really you don't see. Oh, before I keep going to the next slide, I want to talk about the surgery that happened just recently. And Dr. Gwyneth Pickett was a doctor in Halifax who deals with brain surgery over there for my type of injury, and she was amazing as well. So the energy that people don't see is really important, because you travel, you volunteer, you move, you sing, you manage projects, and you manage responsibilities. But everything that happens behind the scenes with somebody who lives brain injury is really important. And that's what people often don't see. So we have to plan, we have to prepare, we have to pace ourselves. We have to think about, okay, what's our recovery going to be like after we're out on the go and doing something important or doing something fun. Energy is definitely a real resource. And on some days when you feel great, you can accomplish a great deal. And some other days you're in the house with your blinds closed and you really don't do very much at all. So rest is part of the recovery. Rest is part of health. One of the greatest gifts that I have given myself, that I hope that people really move forward with, is that you do now have permission to listen to your body. You have permission to say that you can or you can't, or today is a good day or a bad day. Both days are valid, and both days are part of our life. the reality basically of my invisible disability is some people, their disabilities, their brain injuries are visible. Some people have invisible issues. So you're dealing with fatigue and pain and dizziness and cognitive overload and tinnitus and visual disturbances. And the list goes on. Swallowing difficulties, I have speech fatigue, anxiety, depression is a big thing that goes along with some people dealing with brain injury as well. People can't look at you as an event. People look at you as a functioning human being, and they tend to assume that your everyday reality is what they might see on a good day, when sometimes your reality is very different, and they don't see the inner fatigue that goes along with making sure that the face that people see is a positive face, is a smiling face. So give yourself the grace to be able to have good days and bad days. And in terms of the healthcare system, that is another thing that was really important for me in terms of navigating the healthcare system through this disability. You tend to learn medical jargon and terminology even when you don't want to. It's a reality that you have to learn it. And finding specialists or people that are capable of helping is a real thing. But honestly, the difficulty as well through the healthcare system, where you come across people who have notions of what it is that you live when they may not know actually what it is. So it's about advocacy in terms not of challenging the healthcare system, but working with the healthcare system and making sure that the healthcare system is part of anyone's recovery in a brain injury situation. There are common misconceptions about brain injury. Recovery is definitely not a linear thing. Recovery is messy and lovely, and it includes progress and setbacks and frustration and surprises. And it's really important that when you're surviving brain injury, you learn to smile, you learn to push through, you learn to participate in life, but you'll also learn to step back when you need to step back. And the challenges do remain. They're definitely a part of life, but your ability to adapt is really important as well. Why awareness matters, why awareness is so important, is that anyone can have a brain injury and it can happen at any time. It affects families and the workplaces and the friendships and the communities that anyone with a brain injury actually lives. Awareness leads to understanding. It leads to understanding that compassion is part of that understanding. And compassion often leads to being included. Inclusion is really important because we all are part of the society. It doesn't end. Recovery doesn't end when you leave the hospital. Recovery is a lifelong thing. And in many ways, that's when the real work begins. And awareness helps ensure that we have people to share our journey with, and we're not alone. The support is very different in many ways, and we actually try to figure out ourselves what we need for support. And sometimes we don't even know. Sometimes it's just somebody being there, somebody listening, a companion, having the flexibility to be able to leave earlier or later, and trying to figure out you yourself what it is that you need is a very important step, because again, giving yourself some grace is really, really important. Recovery, resilience, and hope is the message that I'm really hoping that our table today brings to Canada is that acceptance, resilience, growth, everything is based on hope, and hope to not live that everything is easy, but hope to live that you are your best self in whatever day it is, in whatever movement it is, in whatever moment it is. And people living with brain injury, we still matter. We're still a part of this incredible life. And adaptation does take a lifetime, but so does hope. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for Brain Injury Canada making this awareness across Canada. It's great. And yeah, if there's any questions at the end, then that would be a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, Kerry. And we certainly, I'm sure there will be many questions coming in, and an incredible story, and incredible to kind of hear your overall experience, but also something that so many people can lean on having the shared experiences that they would have had both within the healthcare system, within families, and certainly is advocating for themselves. I love that quote that you had in there. So thank you, Kerry. And yes, we will hear from you again when we open up for questions. But finally, our third speaker coming up is someone who I know very well. We're thrilled to have him. We're lucky enough that he serves on the board of Brain Injury Canada. He is just an incredible guy to talk to with an incredible story. And, you know, we can't let him get talking about rugby here, or else the entire hour would have been taken up. But without further ado, everybody, let me introduce the fantastic Paul Rogers.
What a welcome. I mean, that's not something to live up to at all, really, is it? Thank you, Gary, and thank you to the two speakers before me. I feel like the little baby on the block here, because I've only stamped my brain injury ticket in 2018. So you guys, the older hands here, are going to sit back going, yeah, okay. But my injury was a traumatic, and I have a flair for the dramatic, as you will soon discover. My family and I were in North Quebec in the wintertime. It was 19th of March 2018. Everyone has that before and after date, whether they remember it or not, when the car we were driving was hit and run over by a train. And so we woke up 10 days later. I had a broken back, broken skull, and and basically didn't know who, what, anything. And my parents are English, and they got the call to come over and switch my life support off. So it was all fairly tense. My wife was also in the car, so she also sustained a brain injury, and that really is something which the insurance companies really struggle, because it's not just me, it's the family. Our 2-year-old was also in the car with us, thankfully unhurt, but I'll dive into that story a bit later. It's get your tissues ready for that one. But the point of this talk is, what have I learned? What would I like to let people know? And the first thing I really think is that every injury is different. My wife and I, same car, same accident. She has the flip top head where they had to have emergency surgery to relieve the pressure. Mine was the carotid artery and the side of the head, so I had to just blow up like the Elephant Man. She was actually more serious at the time. Mine, once all the tide went out and all the swelling went down, then all the real trauma started to reveal itself. I take the point which Kerilee said, that your real recovery starts when you leave the hospital, when it goes into your own hands. And every recovery looks different, and everyone's going to find a different way of coming back, of dealing with it. And that's what makes it so interesting and also so complicated, because you can't just say, oh, brain injury, and think you've got a one answer. It's like saying cancer. There's thousands of different types. Brain injury is exactly the same. So every injury is different. Every recovery is different. Every day is different. I mean, when I get up in the morning, I have not got a clue how that day is going to go. I don't know. It's a lottery, and it's been a lottery for the last 8 years, that you don't know how it is. There is no, I'm going to get out of bed and spring out and everything's going to be fine. where your boundaries are yesterday, they've moved. They're not in the same place. What you could do yesterday, you might not be able to do today. You may be paying for yesterday or carrying some residual. So every day looks different, which makes it really difficult to be consistent. What I've discovered also that yes, the TBI is a physical injury. How we gain it is a physical or it's an acquired, but actually it's a functional injury, which makes it so difficult because function is invisible. As Ty said, when you've got eye patches and scars and stuff, you kind of got something, but when it's function, it only comes up when you hit the situation, and that's when you learn and everyone else learns about the brain injury. We haven't done this before, so we're kind of learning firsthand. And if we're learning firsthand, everyone else is also learning firsthand too. So for me, my big problems have been chronic pain, fatigue. I have a battery which never ever seems to charge. It's like having one of those old computers where you always are constantly doing the updates. Gary will know this. But it never seems to actually, and you have that little buffering signal. That's if anyone had, some people have an exclamation mark above their head. I've got the buffering. Um, the Also the other things I have trouble with is light, sound, and movement. I mean, what type of heinous injury leaves you with that? I mean, yeah, the world's fine if it's got no light, sound, or movement. So, little secret, COVID for me was really good because there was no bugger out there and I was able to walk around without being particularly triggered. So I always have protection. I have these, it's not just because I want to look cool, well, maybe, but these ones are actually special glasses which help with migraines and light sensitivity. I never leave home without my earbuds because that also distracts my brain, not blocks it, distracts the brain from the whatever it is. Canadian Tire, if you want a road trip, that's the place to test it out. So what I've learned is that you have to live your life where you didn't have to live your life, somewhere between of not overdoing it and actually doing something. And those things move on like the sands. They don't stay the same. So you've actually got to find that little sweet spot each time. You've got to hit that chord or that right note, but just that one slight miss and the song doesn't make as good a sense. However, silence, as Ty will tell you, is actually the secret behind the notes. So that was basically where we are with what the injury is. This is something no one tells you about, and even though I can't see your cameras, I know you're going to be nodding at this one. Mental health runs parallel to the injury. So mental health, no one tells you. They didn't sit me down when I came out of hospital and said, listen, Paul, you think this is bad? Just wait for the reality check on your mental health. Oh my God. So what sort of things am I talking about? Frustration. If you don't know where you are each day and where your boundaries are, my God, that's frustrating. How does frustration usually appear? Well, that can appear in anger, irritability, all sorts of things. And that frustration is an ongoing thing. You have a loss of identity. You're not who you are before and after. You are you, but you are a different you. And I understand what Kerilee says, and Ty says it's a passage back to a new you, not trying to return to pick up the script, because that script doesn't work anymore. There's certain times in our lives where we have to not, it's a transformation rather than a return. And we are the sum of our experiences and choices. And I hope with some reflection after today, you'll be able to have a look and see that some of the things you have learned actually are going to put you in a slightly better place. There is also the missing out. We've had to miss out on a lot of things. Cancelling plans, where normally I say, yeah, that's not a problem, I'll come. Going and then leaving early because it's overwhelming. Having to make the goodbye speech early, not staying to the main part of it. Over planning. When somebody says you're going to come to something, oh my goodness, it's a logistical exercise the mind has to go through about a day or two of planning escape routes, exits, what ifs, what happens, what is there places to sit down, is it going to be too noisy? That is mental gymnastics. It's all being done manually. It's not just turning up and ringing the doorbell and going in. There's a whole thought process which is exhausting before you even arrive at whatever it is. That can include the doctors, friends, and everything else. One of the things I really find difficult is Christmas every year, because that's family parties and everything else. And I am a happy person, you can tell. But there's also this pressure to be happy and smiley as well. So not only are you trying to be, you push yourself that extra few moments, or that you stay that extra bit too long because you want to be involved. You don't want to miss out because that's going to hurt my mental health and it's going to make me miserable. So you push it. So there's always a trade-off between the one thing and the other. And if that's not frustrating, tell me what's frustrating. Grief, already mentioned, I think, by Ty, a very, very important topic. I'm very lucky to have somebody I've got a professional helping me. It's very important to have some sort of team with a professional in it. For that, grief is like recovery, is a circular procedure. It's not linear. It has the 5 stages. See, I picked up all the lingo too. Too many times hanging out with doctors and professionals, you kind of become a bit of an expert yourself. Even though you never really wanted to, you still become it. So we have 5 stages. We have denial. Yeah, tick, done that. Anger. Tick, done that. Bargaining. Well, okay, how am I going to get around? No, done that. Depression. Yep. If that's not going to make you miserable and missing out and not being able to do things which you thought you could do. And then finally, the word of acceptance, which everyone seems to get to, but it's really painful because that actually means having to confront and deal and live with your shortcomings or your new strengths. That is all invisible. Nobody comes and draws a picture for you. You have to find that out by putting your hand on that stove, putting your hand on that stove, ow, 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 ow. So acceptance is not easy. We see life very differently, as we all do. We now see it, normal activities can seem like obstacles. We seem to live a life between cost versus benefit. If I go, is it going to be good for me, or it's going to cost me a week in bed? And if you can always tell the secret discussions as somebody walks over to you, a brain injury thing, and says, what's this going to cost you? They ain't talking dollars. They're talking energy, fatigue, days in bed, days, the messy stuff no one ever sees. So that is how we live our lives. And it's really difficult to explain. But I've come up with, or I'm using something called the spoon theory. If you've not heard about this, you'll love it. I've got props. I bring props. Okay, so spoon theory. In my hand here, I have 10 wooden spoons. Let's say we start with 12. Last night was kind of rough. I had a bad night, so that's 2 spoons gone already. This is a really good way of explaining it to somebody and also then talking to them later about it. So preparing for today's meeting, that's 2 spoons. Had to actually scratch around. No, I knew what I was going to talk about. I had to find something to talk about in a coherent way. Doing this meeting, being sociable with you lovely selves, even though you're not taking, I'm say 5, no, I say 3 spoons for that, because I'm actually having to actually be happy and everything. I'm ignoring my pain that's going on and everything else. My little boy's ill today, so he's going to have to look after him today. So let's say another 2 spoons gone. I've got some errands to run a bit later as well. So I live, because it's in Canada, I live in the middle of nowhere. We love living in the middle of nowhere. That's lovely. So that's another 2 spoons to get everywhere. Okay, 1 spoon. I've got some socializing I want to do online later. I'm out of spoons. Hey, let's do what the Americans do and built their whole economy on. Let's borrow some spoons from tomorrow. What a great idea. So I've got 3 spoons from tomorrow. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, I'm starting with 7 spoons tomorrow. And so this goes on. The one spoon which you should always remember is always keep a spoon for yourself. Whatever happens, it's very easy to put yourself last, but always remember to have a spoon for you. So that's the spoon theory, which I think is a really good way of being able to explain to people who don't understand the difficulties of energy and budgeting energy as well. If you're able to sit down, it's a very visual way, it's a very easy way for people to remember. Now, on top of all that, as if that isn't enough, we have to be our own advocates as well. And mention both in the Kerilee, yep, that's close enough. We have to also advocate. Not only do we have to advocate with the doctors, not all doctors are created equally, not all neuro people are created equally. We love them, bless them, the medical authority. My views changed on them, by the way. I kind of always thought the medical authority was there to fix you. It's kind of a bit like Canadian Tire. Take my car and say, something's wrong, find it, fix it, send it out. It didn't quite work like that with the medical authority. They're like, well, you know, so, and they're doing the best they can. This is not a dig at the medical authority. It's my perception of what I thought they were doing. That's changed, and I believe that's for the better thing. But we also have to advocate for with our friends and family. It's easy for them to actually forget that we do have these inconsistency parts, especially friends when they invite you somewhere. They don't think of A, B, C, D. They also have to be receptive to you cancelling plans. So we live in this paradox. We want to hide and what we want, but at the same time, we want to be seen. We want to be heard, but you also want to blend in. And so it's very, very difficult. So what I've discovered, and I'll wrap this up for you, is that I've always wanted to be mysterious and fascinating, but didn't mean that in a medical way. So when I'm told, oh, you're one of the first, I don't want to hear that. I want to be as common as everyone else, please. Thank you. I've done 10 of these today and I'm bored with it. So the things I've discovered which made a difference for me is functional neurology. I've lost my way and was not able to walk a couple of years ago. That was my second time of learning how to walk. And rather than being pumped full of drugs, I've got enough drugs in me that I rattle anyway. That functional neurology was a really good thing. So be curious. Secondly, I am one, and if anyone else is here, please tell me. I have a neuro implant in my head. Now, this is not an Elon Musk thing. Don't worry, I'm not one of in that. This is actually a pain management thing. It's a trial thing. One of the very few people can back. It's purely for pain management. But again, it's about being curious, being put forward and asking those questions, advocating for yourself. Well, that doesn't make sense. Why can't we look at this? And being effectively a stone in their shoe in a nice way. When I see that surgeon, he's really interested in talking to me because he wants to know all about how it's going. So I keep a pain diary, which is kind of fun. But when somebody says, well, do you write down every day? I give the Muhammad Ali response is that I only count the sit-ups when they start hurting. And that's how I do my pain, because my normal day-to-day pain, I don't bother putting down. So you have to be proactive in your recovery. Sitting on the couch will not happen. You have to be willing to go out there, question, and take what you can. Finally, anyone who likes to travel, and you're all Canadians, you love to travel, sunflower lanyards, the invisible disability sign. Now, they actually do have, if I hold it to my camera, I have a brain injury actually there. So people traveling now, a couple of years ago, I helped Air Canada launch the sunflower lanyard at Montreal. And so now Air Canada and most of the airports here recognize, and the staff have been trained. I've done training videos for all of them. But it's going to be a good way for you to be able to do something which maybe you didn't think was off, which you may thought you couldn't do. rather than having to explain yourself, this is a very visible cue. And it's something hopefully that if you're a carer or somebody and carers could go with you, they can wear a lanyard too. And it's a way of extra time and space for you. So it's an important thing to hopefully something I can give you, which maybe you didn't already know about. Um, do something for something else. Be an advocate for somebody else. Go and be a volunteer if you can. Just because you had a brain injury doesn't mean that your story ends there. Do not get lost in this chapter. It's not the end. If you're not in the right place, it means you haven't reached the end yet. So somebody who you don't know is actually admiring your courage. And I just want to pick up finally, as I finish, with Kelly's word on hope. I have a different meaning for hope. Hope to me means hold on, pain ends. Thank you very much. And questions abound.
Thank you very much, Paul. Everybody, I think everybody enjoyed your unique perspective and your colorful insight onto everything that has gone on in your life. So a lot of talk about advocacy from all of our speakers. I do want to share a link in the chat right now before we get into the question and answer about our annual Brain Injury Awareness Month campaign. For anyone that hasn't checked it out yet, Brain Injury Canada is in the midst of a Brain Injury Awareness Month campaign, and you can sign up there to become an advocate, share resources, raise awareness through some of our engaging activities. So please feel free, everyone, to check that link out in the chat. It's Brain Injury Awareness Month 2026. So please, if everybody could, we have a couple questions here already for our speakers, but if anybody had some questions they wanted to share, you can do so in the Q&A or do so in the chat. But we do have, right now, I can get to our first question for our different speakers. And maybe we'll go in, I want everybody to have a chance to speak, so we'll go in the order of Ty, Kerry, and Paul. You can each kind of take a turn answering a couple of these. So this is from Stephen, where he said, one challenge after brain injury is that people may look recovered from the outside while still dealing with a lot of the things that you all talked about: fatigue, processing speed, emotional regulation, sensory overload. From your lived experience, what is one misconception you wish families, employers, or community members would stop making? And what would genuine recognition look like? So Ty, will go to you with that.
Hey, okay. That's a tough one. I guess like you say, it's every day is different, every person's different, every brain injury is different. I guess it's as simple as assumptions, really, and keeping an open mind and keep just the possibilities for what can make things possible, really, I guess, really, right? So every situation, I think that it can come with a different answer. It's a lot of the most challenging things, like for me, off the top, were social situations and just endurance and getting through things. So yeah, I guess it's making room to be allowed to take a break, to leave early, and to kind of feel like you can do that without pressure or judgment, I guess, would be one of the things that would have made things easier at the beginning.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Ty. And Kerry, anything to add to that?
I think it's pretty well covered.
Yeah, Paul, yourself?
Yeah, I agree. And time is not a healer when it comes to this, unfortunately. This is a long term. What I've found is that after 2 or 3 days, people are very sympathetic maybe the first 2 or 3 times, but then they kind of like, well, why haven't you got any better? So I think patience is a very important thing. And unfortunately, it's down to us as brain injury survivors to help them with that type of patience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, perfect. And Paul, I just wanted to let you know that we're having a lot of people in the chat asking about your lanyard and asking about the link to the asking about the sunflower program, and Julie was able to share the link to the sunflower program. So a lot of interest, Paul, in that in the sunflower program.
I also saw, where do you get the lanyard? Air Canada apparently have the actual lanyards for free on their check-in. However, if you want the card, you go to the website, and this one is very nice, got a picture and everything else. But yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you for that, Paul. And yeah, we can also share some of that afterwards as well to people's emails. So we can do some of that. So this question is coming from Summer, and I think I'm going to get this one. I'll direct to you, Carrie. Is what do you want professional supports, social work, social services, rehab, medical, to know when supporting people living with a brain injury, and what do you find the most helpful in the settings?
That's really interesting. First of all, I want to be honest about the first question. When you came to me, again, because of brain injury, I could not remember the question, what exactly it was. So I just answered off the top of my head. Here's reality right here. Let's go to the question at hand. I'm talking about the help that you get from professionals. Sometimes there's a lot of people in the system that have different kinds of injuries, and sometimes brain injury might get lumped into that, and I find that we may have a slightly different set of needs. If for example, after I had a very serious stroke, there was somebody coming in, and I needed help. Even though I could speak and I looked like I was okay, I needed help with making my bed, lifting the mattress, chopping. I couldn't chop quickly enough, so with cooking, that kind of thing. When I got to the point where I could actually shower well, I did not realize that I was going to lose my support because I said that I didn't need help with that anymore. And so I think just because one thing is on the chopping block doesn't mean that there should eliminate the help completely. The physio has really helped a lot because they tend to push, which is great. Again, social work is necessary, as are people that are going to help with the mental aspect of what goes along with brain injury. So saying what you need, again, figuring out what you need, even having people with you to help you figure that out is really important, and asking for it.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Carrie. And I recognize everyone. We are closing in on 1 o'clock. We do have a couple more questions here. I'd love to have asked. So if anyone does have to hop off at the end of the 1 o'clock, we thank you so much for joining. But I am going to present our presenters with a couple more questions, because there's some good questions around brain injury from people with lived experience that are coming in here. And this one here is from Aaron, and it's talking about his struggles as a young stroke survivor with intimacy, both physical and emotional. And I'm going to open that up as well to talk about, community, right? And how your experiences around just finding that community, finding that with living with a brain injury. Is there any strategies or suggestions that you can make to someone living with brain injury on how to find that sense of community? And we'll go Paul for that one first.
Hi there. Great question. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's difficult. And it comes back to some being proactive as well. People are not going to find you just sat on your couch, and you need, in one way, to be able to make half the effort to get to where into engaging with the community. I'm members of various Facebook groups online, and I may put things which I find helpful or amusing, because I do think humor has a huge part to play. Gallows humor, which we're all going to be subject to. But I think it starts with us having to outreach. The community is there. It's a question of finding them. And I think Facebook and various other groups is a good place to start. I'm not saying it's that. There's also local brain injury associations as well, all over the country. So it's good to reach out to them to see if they've got any events or things like that going on. So, you know, we are Brain Injury Canada is the overview network, but inside of that, there's all these little networks who organize and do things locally.
Yeah, such a great point, Paul. And for anyone who is unaware, if you do have a local association, the answer is probably yes, or at the very least a provincial. And you can find all of those resources at the Brain Injury Canada website. You can type in wherever you're coming from across our great country, and we're able to provide all of the local, whether it's the local association or even some local brain injury services. You can access all of that through braininjurycanada.ca. But did Ty or Kerry, did you have anything to add on that question around, you know, finding that community and intimacy and that sort of aspect of life?
It's sometimes tough. It is. I would agree there 100%. But give yourself some grace again. You really do have to work at it, which again, that's part of life and you don't have a choice. But ask questions and reach out.
Yeah, I think it takes some time, especially off the top, is I think part of getting better at relationships comes with getting to know yourself again too. So there's a time period where you're still getting to know yourself again and how you operate in these situations. And that even kind of ties in a little bit with navigating the rehabilitation system. Sometimes I found working with professionals was only really as strong as the rapport and the relationship with that person was. So, you know, that comes again with getting to know yourself and how you operate in these situations and how well you're able to communicate your own needs and emotions.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for this. And in recognition of the time, we are going to bring this to a close. For everyone in attendance, thank you all so much for spending your lunch hour. If you're on the Eastern time or whatever it might have been for you in your day, your morning or your afternoon. We're greatly appreciative of your support. We'll be sending out some more resources, and we can always provide the recording of this for anybody who does wish to share some of the information. Again, it is Brain Injury Awareness Month, and we are trying to make sure that we're spreading as much awareness and doing as much as we can across the country. There are so many local associations and provincial associations doing the same. Again, my name was Gary. I'm our Partnerships and Development Manager here with Brain Injury Canada, and I thank you all for spending the time with us. And most of all, I thank Paul, Kerry, and Ty for sharing their incredible stories. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
You too.